Levi, if I had told you at the beginning of this season that the Texas Rangers would have not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 finalists for starters in the American League voting for the All-Star Game, you would have told me what?
Oh, man, I would have gone through the list of guys that I thought could do it. I would have thought, because pitchers don't, that's not on there, so it would have to be position players. So Simeon and Seager would have been easy to name. I might have said Nate Lowe and Adolis Garcia, and I would have been stumped after that.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Can I ask you then, because our friend Jared Sandler has been kind of, banging on the table about all of the all-star worthy Rangers available. Jonah Heim is this interesting perspective because Jonah's been playing incredible, but catcher's such a weird space when you look at the teams that have to get a player in and, the idea of, just catcher in the MLB. Like, what do you view about his all-star candidacy with how well he's played?
I think he's been great. We kind of knew that he was going to be an elite defensive catcher. We've seen that the last couple of years. Last year he started really strong at the plate. I really think that a lot of that may have just been, I hadn't really had that heavy a workload ever before. Got exhausted and had to keep focusing on his defense, and his offense just kind of fell off. So I'm not hugely surprised by that. But I mean, if you look at Fangraphs and you sort of arrange by, I had this pulled up in front of me actually, if you arrange by wins above replacement, he's the 3rd most valuable catcher in the entire game. He's valuable in American League. The only 2 ahead of him, Sean Murphy with Atlanta, 0.1, Will Smith with the Dodgers, 2.7. Number 3 is right there, Jonah Heim, 2.6. The next highest is Adley Rutschman at 1.8. So,
wow.
Yeah, he's been extremely good, and I think he probably gets a little bit overlooked because he is on a team with guys like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, and before he was injured, DeGrom. The Rangers have some big name guys now, which has not really been the case in the past. But yeah, Heim is absolutely worthy of an all-star nod. I think he has earned every bit of that.
Speaking of one of those all-star finalists, it also includes a rookie third baseman from Texas Tech who has been lighting it up at third base. What have you thought about Josh Jung and the way that it seems like the lights are just not too bright for him when it comes to what he's done so far for the Rangers this season?
No, he's been great, hasn't he? Like I was a little bit I think a lot of people kind of freaked out last year when he got up and he had such a great minor league. It was brief because he'd been injured, but at the time he spent in the minor leagues, he was so good. Came up and there was a lot of strikeouts. And I think that got a little overblown. I kind of thought that this offseason too. It's such a small sample size. He was just coming back from injury. It was his first time to be in the big leagues. And frankly, I wondered at the moment if that was maybe should they call him up after so few minor league games? I could see both sides. Like, yeah, he's super hot. You should call him up. Also, he's got 44 minor league games or something like that. In retrospect, I think it was a really good idea because it gave him a chance to get up in the big leagues, see what it's like, have a little bit of failure, and he's always been a kid that seems pretty on top of it mentally, so he's going to deal with that well. He's going to use that as motivation to work. Frankly, I think calling him up last year and letting him fail a little bit was probably a good idea. And some of that failure may have been due to the fact that he had been injured, had missed a lot of time, worked so hard to get back healthy, and then, it's near the end of the season. I assume there was some fatigue there. But yeah, he's been about as good as advertised and, in fact, better than advertised. And the one thing that's been a surprise to me is his defense has been much better than I thought. It seems like just about every night you're seeing him make either a really good, solid play on defense or some spectacular play that you're like, I didn't think he was one of those Gold Glove type guys. Hearing about him in college and hearing about him in the minor leagues, it was always scouting report on him was he's going to hit. He hits for average, good contact, probably not a lot of power. And he's shown a lot of power and has also just been pretty impressive on defense as well. It's been super fun.
We're talking to Levi Weaver of The Athletic right here on 105 through the Fan. He writes the Wind Up newsletter, and I mean, I can never recommend enough that you listen or that you read it rather. And in reading it, you were kind of talking about at one point about Josh Sborz and his kind of resurgence, the way that he's been playing well. First of all, like, what did you learn about why he's been playing better? And I kind of have a follow-up after that.
Sure, yeah. So I got to take like my one trip this year, not really traveling this year, but the Rays and the Rangers were playing, two best teams in baseball, and I was like, raised my hand, I'll go. So I went and talked to him, and this was, a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago. And even then you could tell something had shifted for him, and it has stuck, by the way. He hasn't allowed an earned run this month. And I said, man, what's going on with you? Like, no offense, but like, you've always had good stuff, but it just seems like you could never really put it together. There was command issues, like, what's going on? And he started off, well, it's just about, executing pitches. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not that. We heard executing pitches you've heard that your whole career, but now you're doing it. Like, he's like, well, it's, process over results. I'm like, buddy, that was Chris Woodward's motto, and he's not even here anymore. I know that's not new. Well, how do you do that? He said, well, it's, kind of just being able to sort of set aside the failure and, focus on the thing. And I'm like, okay, I almost gave up. I'm like, I know I can ask this question a little bit better. How do you do that? He goes, well, I had a meeting with CY, with Chris Jung, and he recommended that I go to the mental skills coach and just kind of do a little work with them. And I said, honestly, it's been great to kind of get my head straight, and I don't feel, it was some fear and some anxiety, and we kind of got that set aside. And I used to almost dread hearing the phone ring in the bullpen when I knew it was going to be me, but now when I hear it ring, it's fun. I'm ready to go out and pitch, and that's been all the difference. And man, he has just looked like a completely different pitcher. So I wrote a story, I think, last spring about Chris Young and Ben Baruti is the other guy in the Rangers front office that both really emphasized to ownership, like, hey, we need to invest in this. We need to invest in a better mental health program for our players. We need to really take care of the person and make sure that we've got ways to do that, not only because it is the right thing to do to take care of the employees of the organization, but also because this is going to benefit us on the field.
That's a really unfortunate time to lose Levi.
He was giving such a great answer.
Yeah, I mean, he's very right. He wrote this piece May 4th of 2022 talking about the Rangers' investment in mental health. And one of the questions that I was going to ask, the follow-up I was going to ask Levi is just, we've talked about how much money the Rangers have spent when it comes to actual contracts and the players. And, of course, that is not to be ignored. And, of course, bringing back Bruce Bochy, right, or bringing in Bruce Bochy, I should say. And I just wonder if there's any way to quantify or, figure how much the Rangers' investment in mental health and, focus in, the human aspect of the baseball game has helped the Rangers, because a lot of times in sports we lament the numbers guys and making everybody into numbers, but this seems to be the Rangers focusing back in on the human aspect of the game.
Can you guys hear me yet?
Yes, we hear you again, Levi. Yeah.
Sweet. You know what? I could hear you the whole time. I don't know what happened, but my phone cut out. Anyway, I was near the end of the answer. Anyway, you basically got it, that, they're focusing on that, and Sborz is a good example of how that has paid off in on-field production. So honestly, that was the universe telling me that I was rambling. That's what happened.
I was transfixed. So if you were rambling, then it was good.
Last one for me, Levi, when it comes to just the overall state of Major League Baseball, what has been the biggest surprise and biggest disappointment as we get ready to turn the calendar from June to July here in the next week or so?
The biggest surprise probably is a more broad scope thing, is that, and I know that we're talking about the pitch clock is not as in vogue as it was a month and a half, 2 months ago, but it's been remarkable to me what a big difference that has made in making these games more watchable. And I recognize that the games that I watched covering the Rangers the last few years were not watchable for other reasons, but good grief, when those things would drag on to 3 hours and 50 minutes, 4 hours and 10 minutes, you're like, this is a lot. It's a lot. And this year it's been so much more crisp. You get in, you get out. The at-bats are better. The shift ban has led to a lot more action. I think those rule changes have surprised me in how effective they've been in making the game more enjoyable to watch. As far as the biggest disappointment, man, it's got to be some combination of the Mets and the Cardinals. The Mets spent $445 million this offseason, and they are aggressively mid, to use a term that I would steal from my younger friends. They're not great. And then the Cardinals were supposed to contend in the NL Central. There's nobody else who else are they going to beat? I mean, who else is going to beat them? And they're terrible. They're in last place. If you want a surprise positive team, it started off as the Pirates. More recently, it's the Reds, who are on, I don't know what they did today, but as of yesterday, 11-game winning streak. Ellie De La Cruz is great. Joey Votto is back. Reds are super fun to watch, as are the team I'm watching right now, the Marlins. They have a better record than the Dodgers or the Yankees.
Levi, real quick before we let you go, like really, really quick. And it's really unfair because it's a tough ranging question, but how do you decide when a team that you anticipated was going to be bad is for real or when it's just a hot streak, a la the Reds?
Ooh, I mean, a 10-game win streak is fun, but even that, you kind of got to go, well, it's mid-June. Let's see how things look closer to the trade deadline. Let's see how it looks later in the season. Honestly, for me, it's like, unless they go out and win 100 games, I probably don't make up my mind until it gets close to like clinching a playoff spot, because a bad team is supposed to be a bad team for a reason. And if they are bad, even if they have a good record in like early August, if they're bad, there's a losing streak in there somewhere just waiting to come out. So I'm pretty cynical about these sort of things. But it's a lot of fun to watch when it's happening. Like, it's great to watch the Reds be fun and young and having a blast out there.